And my go live on Instagram's not working.
Mine either.
Oh boy. Okay, well,
Oh,
hello
I see it
everybody.
now.
Okay. All right, wonderful. It looks like we're live. Yes, and I have notification that you're streaming live. So I guess we'll get started here. And hello, everybody. I'm Peter Goldstein, founder and chief synergy officer at We Did It Health. And I am so excited to have everybody here with us today, live and watching the recording on YouTube. So what we're doing is this is such an exciting event. It's our initial launch event for our first Passion Pod. So let me tell you more about what the Passion Pods are. So we did that health. We've created a community on our website, we did that health, and please join us there. And our community, where you can have a profile, it's a little bit like Facebook profile and conversations and groups. And what we're doing is we're organizing our groups, not geographically in our community, but by topic. So every we have different topics, different groups, to bring people together with similar interests, with like-minded interests and with similar passions. So we're calling these passion pods, and we're launching our first passion pod today. It's environmentally related, to have conversations about the environment and the climate, conscious conversations. And we have our leader, our pod leader, with us today. I'm very happy to introduce Stuart, uh, who also authored a wonderful award-winning book, Beat the Matrix. And so he will be telling us about that. He will be taking us through some of the things that our passion pods are all about. So we're launching this. Our passion pods, the focus in the passion pod is for us all to who are passionate about a topic, or when we have an opportunity to plant seeds on a specific topic, we can come to this passion pod. We can pick up the seeds, pick up the resources, pick up strategies, pick up conversation starters, and then we have the pod to come back to share our successes, to share our challenges, and for everybody to support each other as we go forward, changing the world and making an impact and making a difference. So with that, I'd like to welcome Stuart. Uh, Please share with us a little bit about your background, if you would, please. And I know you have a wonderful presentation for us.
Oh, thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here and to be launching this Passion Pod on the environment and climate change and how our diet impacts those two things, which it has an immense impact on the planet, the choices that we're making in the grocery aisle. So a little bit about myself. I live in Lexington, Kentucky, and I've lived here my whole life. It's a beautiful state with amazing people, but also some of the least healthy people, unfortunately, in the United States. In 2021, we ranked 48th in healthy behaviors and 47th in health outcomes. So there's only one other state that has more people with multiple chronic health conditions than Kentucky. So we have, unfortunately, a lot of people who suffer from chronic health conditions like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, obesity. We rank in some of the top of all those categories in the nation, unfortunately. And so many of the health issues that Kentuckians face are lifestyle issues. You know, it's because of the way that we're eating and living our lives. And so I grew up eating meat. I grew up eating the standard, excuse me, the standard American diet full of animal-based foods. And I thought that's what I needed to eat in order to be healthy. And I was taught that eating animal-based foods was natural, necessary, and nutritious. And so that's why I did it. I didn't even think about it. I didn't think about the animals. I didn't think about what it was doing to the environment at all. But fortunately, at the age of 23 in 1985, I became plant-based. And I did that because science was showing that eating animal-based foods was detrimental to health and would contribute to heart disease, cardiovascular disease, which is our number one killer. And I realized I didn't want to become a statistic. So I gave up eating all animal-based foods at that time. And Peter, in 1985 in Kentucky, it was a vegan wasteland. It was really, there was no place you could go to eat. There was only like one place you could shop that would have any kind of alternatives. There was no Impossible Foods or Beyond Meats. If you were lucky, you could find, one brand of soy milk and maybe one brand of tofu. But we made it work. And my family, we were all on board with this, and a group of us adopted this way of eating, and we supported each other. We had weekly potlucks. We shared recipes. In fact, we even created our own cookbook because there was no vegan cookbooks available. There was no internet. This was, I feel like I'm saying, we used to walk barefoot in the snow, but it was really such a different world, and it's never been easier or tastier to become plant-based now. Certainly so much easier than it was back then. And unfortunately, I did start to do a lot of traveling with business, and it was impossible to be plant-based while traveling. And even when we went to restaurants and I tried to get something to eat, they looked at us like we were from another planet. So unfortunately, I did become vegetarian for a number of years, and then went back to being 100% plant-based. So I gave up eating meat 39 years ago, and 19 of those years I've been plant-based. And I just had my physical Thursday, and all my blood work came back. It's amazing. Everything's just perfect. I have no complaints, and I'm so glad that I adopted this way of eating at such an early age while I was still healthy, and I've been able to maintain that health. So that's a little bit about my story. And most of those years, Peter, I was just content to do my thing and let other people do theirs. If it came up in a conversation of what I was doing, I might say a little bit about it, but I didn't really make it something that I went out of my way to try to talk to somebody about. That's just not me. That's just not the way I roll, so to speak. But about 5 years ago, the more I read about the environment and climate change and animal welfare and health and nutrition, the more I realized I needed to do my part to help mitigate the damage that I was seeing all over the planet and in the lives of people I care about, my family, fellow Kentuckians. And so that's when I decided, that I had a call to action at that point. And that's when I decided to try to make a difference. And that's when I started doing a lot more research and decided to write my book, which is available on Amazon. It's called Escape the Matrix. And I'm using the world in the Matrix movies as a metaphor for our world, because in the Matrix movies, artificial intelligence has taken over the planet and is using humans as an energy source. And I say our world's like that because humans, we've taken over this planet and we're using farmed animals as our energy source. So that's just a little bit about me and my book and my journey.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you, Stuart, and thank you for sharing that. And I picked up on something that you've experienced that's so important in our work. So you said up until 5 years ago, you wouldn't speak up much. You were
Yeah.
laying in the background, and that's exactly the mission of our work. How do we reach to that moment that you've experienced? And
Mm-hmm.
and so imagine if all of us who are vegan or plant-based, and all of us did that. So
Right.
all of us started speaking up, and the way we frame it and we did it is to plant seeds. So we're
Right.
really not looking to push anybody away. We're not looking to tell anybody what to do, but just gently plant some seeds. Just
Mm-hmm.
just and if somebody's accepting the seeds of, and as we learn our communication skills and improve those, and we pick up on cues, we plant a seed and somebody's very receptive, then we can go ahead and continue the conversation. But but if we plant a seed, we need to know that that's successful, because sooner or later that person will remember that, and sooner or later they'll
Hmm.
say, you know what, I keep hearing about this. There must be something there. So
Hmm.
so that's our mission, and I so appreciate you being here and sharing your
Hmm.
experience, and sharing your strategies, and your resources that we can all learn from, and we can all move forward with, and plant seeds and become more proactive.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Um, time is of the essence. We don't have the luxury anymore of just waiting for people to just come to this conclusion on their own. We need to help people move toward a plant-centered way of eating. Whether it's 100% vegan or not, we have to shift our plates. We have to move the animal-based foods off, or at least to the side, and center our plates around fruits and vegetables, legumes, grains, nuts and seeds. And I'm not saying that because we need to do it for our health. We need to do it for the health of the planet. And we'll go through some slides here, and we'll get an idea of just some of what I'm talking about when I talk about the emissions of food and how important it is. So we came up with the title, Feeding the Future, the Low Carbon Diet Unveiled. And I want to say that I did not coin the phrase low carbon diet. I think it's been around since the late, maybe 2008 or something like that. But I love it because, we've all heard about the low carb diet, and people are, increasing their protein and fats, and moving away from carbohydrates in these diets. And so I like to play on words, because people do the low carb diet because they think it's healthy for them, but the low carbon diet is actually healthier for us, and it's much healthier for the planet. So that's how we came up with this title. And just to let people know, there's a QR code up in the right-hand corner on all these slides. So if you go to that QR code, these slides will be available to you. And then there's a sheet that has links to a lot of what I'm going to be sharing with you all today. So you can get access to that using that QR code. And shall we just go through the slides, Peter?
Certainly, please do.
Okay, cool. All right. So what is a low carbon diet? So, diets that are focused on reducing carbon emissions, they prioritize plant-based foods like legumes, whole grains, vegetables, and fruits and nuts. And they eliminate or limit the consumption of animal-derived foods, particularly red meat and processed meats. And we'll talk about why those are the low-hanging fruit here in a little bit. So, and fortunately, the focusing our diets on nutrient-rich plant-based foods is very healthy for us, and it's very healthy for the planet. So it's a win-win. And I like to say also that farmed animals appreciate it too when we don't kill and eat them. So it's a win for them as well. And then so here are, change begins with each one of us. Certainly we do need to have change that happens at the policy level. And, we need our government to support farmers to move away from growing food for animals to growing food for human consumption. And so farmers are going to need assistance. We need to have policy changes that can move move us into more of a plant-based future. And we can't really wait for the policy. We have to initiate that also on our own, at the grassroots level and at the individual level. And that's why it's so important for us to be able to comfortably plant those seeds you're talking about, where we communicate with friends and family when those opportunities present themselves, as to why this is so powerful and so important. So these top tips for sustainable eating is, center fruits and vegetables, eat more legumes, nuts and seeds and whole grains, and then little to zero meat and little to zero dairy. Those are things that we want to be focused on to do the low carbon diet. And then we'll have time at the end. But if people have questions, if they want to put them in the chat, we have some time at the end. I'll try to address any questions that may come up during the presentation. This next slide, it shows greenhouse gases from protein-rich foods. And there's charts too that just show foods in general. But I wanted to have this slide here because when you even talk to someone about becoming plant-based, they get very concerned about your protein intake and that they think that you're ruining your health because you're not getting enough protein. And that's not true. We have lots of ways of getting protein on a plant-based diet, and a very healthy protein as well. But when you just look at it from the carbon point of view, animal-based foods have a much higher carbon footprint. So this chart shows long and short-lived greenhouse gases. So the long-lived are in kind of the bluish gray, and then the short-lived are in the purple, and that's methane. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, the bottom four are protein-rich plant-based foods: nuts, peas, beans, and tofu. And they have the lowest emissions of all of these protein-rich foods. Even without methane, plant-based foods can have carbon footprints that are 10 times less than animal-based foods. And when you factor in the emissions from methane, it's even much worse. So I think we should have probably a whole presentation, or we could have a whole presentation on this slide and methane. At some point, maybe we'll do that. We'll talk in depth about methane, but it's just important to know that methane is a very potent greenhouse gas. And so everything, to try to get a common denominator, all greenhouse gases are kind of measured by carbon dioxide equivalents. So, and then they look at the global warming potential over a 100-year period. And so that's how they come up with what these emissions per food are. But it's interesting because they're basing this on the carbon footprint or emissions of methane over a 100-year period. But the thing is, in the first 20 years, methane is a lot more potent than it is at 100-year, because the first 12 years, methane is in the atmosphere and it starts breaking down after about 12 years. But in the first 20 years, it's more than 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide at trapping heat into our atmosphere. But over a 100-year period, it drops down to, I think, over 23 or something like that. So when you base it on 100 years, you're basically, you're not really counting methane's real impact, because it's so much worse in the first 20 years. And we can talk about that. But even counting it over a 100-year period, you can see that beef, herd, beef average, prawns, beef dairy, lamb, goat, all these animal-based foods do have methane added to them, except for chicken and eggs. They really don't have methane, but even then they have higher emissions than the plant-based protein sources. And then this next chart here is about greenhouse gas emissions across the supply chain. So when we talk about sustainability in food, a lot of people think, what we're talking about is buying local food, right? People conflate buying local with it being sustainable and good for the planet, right? I've heard this before. I spoke at a sustainability festival last year, and they had a food truck there that was proudly advertising that all of their foods were from Kentucky. That it was locally sourced, but it was full of their menu was full of animal-based food, so they were missing the point. But it's a common myth to think that, when we want to eat sustainably, we just want to eat local food. And that's not true. It really matters what the food is. So for instance, beef herd is at the top of the chart and has the greatest number of emissions, but I've pulled out here below it. We're looking at the color red. Red is the emissions from transportation. And for beef, it's 0.0 0.5% of beef's emissions comes from transportation. Only 0.5%. But if you look further down on the list there, you see all the plant-based foods. And I just pulled out bananas because bananas have a much lower carbon footprint, of course, than all these animal-based foods. But 32.4% of bananas emissions come from transportation. And it's still at the bottom of the list. So it really doesn't matter nearly as much where the food is coming from as to the important thing is what the food is. So it's better for the environment for us to import plant-based foods from the other side of the planet, like bananas, than it is to source our beef from the farmer down the road, So this is what we want to communicate with people. Should it come up, we can share this information. And then there was an amazing study by Oxford University that came out, and they analyzed over 38,000 farms in 119 countries, and they determined that the average American could lower their personal carbon footprint by 73% simply by becoming plant-based. And, this is something that I think the average person doesn't realize, that people are looking at buying an EV or putting solar panels on their house, but totally ignoring the impact of their food choices. And that's why I think studies like this are important for us to know about so that we can talk to people about them. And we have some hypothetical scenarios we'll go through in a minute about how to have conversations with people about some of these statistics and things. So yeah, having these conversations, like Peter said, we want to look for openings to plant these seeds. And so the first step is just looking for openings when people are talking about, where could we plant a seed, and be willing to do that. And then just know that engaging with people on this, it takes mental and emotional labor on your part. And so practice good self-care. And, you have to, know when you have the bandwidth to engage with someone and when you don't. So be aware of yourself and don't think you have to, plant these seeds every time you leave the house. That would be exhausting and it wouldn't be healthy for you. So just know that you will probably encounter some resistance, and it will take some mental and emotional labor on your part. But don't be afraid to engage with people and to make mistakes, because we all make mistakes, and that's how we learn. We learn from our mistakes. I have left conversations thinking, oh, I wish I had said it this way. But you can't wait until perfectionism is going to get in your way if you let it. So don't think you have to know all these statistics and have all this memorized before you have a conversation. You don't. The main thing is for fruitful conversations is to be curious. You want to talk with someone, not at them. Don't just come out guns blazing about, the environment and food, but be curious. Ask them, if they say something, say, well, why are you doing that? Or, and really actively listen and repeat back, what you hear them saying so that they feel heard, because everyone wants to feel heard. And when you do that, you can establish, shared goals. Oh yeah, we both care about sustainability. Did you know? Kind of thing. So you want to establish some common ground, and like I said, actively listen, repeat back to them what you're hearing them say, and establish some kind of common ground. And then you can share how, a plant-based lifestyle can help achieve the shared goal that you just set up, you just agreed upon with the person. And, you want to let go of outcome. Like Peter said earlier, we're planting seeds, and we don't know at what point in someone's life that the light bulb goes off and they make the change in how they eat. So don't expect, just to see someone just change their lifestyle overnight. You don't know, and you may never see them again. You may be having a conversation with someone at the grocery, so you don't know. So just let go and don't be attached to a specific outcome. I mean, we want to, of course, try to help people, but we can't be attached to their changing their behavior, because we're really talking about behavior modification, and that's really, really hard for a lot of people, depending on how many years you've been eating a certain way. I mean, so, and then, like I said, you want to let go of perfectionism. Don't feel like you have to be perfect at explaining plant-based lifestyles or the benefits. You can share resources with them. You can send them to a website or suggest they watch a documentary or something like that. Those are all, and so here are some kind of scenarios, the hypothetical conversation starters, or when you're out and someone might say something and you're thinking, oh, this could be an opening for talking to someone about a low carbon diet. So if someone says, oh yeah, I'm following a low carb diet, and if you have someone over to eat, or you go out to eat and they're like, I'm not eating any carbs, you can ask, be curious, oh, you're not eating carbs. Why aren't you eating carbs? And you might hear something like, oh, it's for my health, or to lose weight. And you want to, again, be genuine and open, repeat what you hear them say, and then establish a shared goal. Yeah, we all want to be healthy, right? We want to live longer, healthier lives, to have more time with our friends and families. And then you can share, well, have you heard of the low carbon diet? And they may say, no, I've never heard of that. And you can share about what we're talking about today, about how a low carbon diet centers on healthy, whole plant-based foods. And it's healthy for us, and it's even healthier for the planet than eating, animal-based foods. And so, you may get some resistance from someone. They may say, oh, that eating so many carbs will make me fat, right? And then you could show that, eating a plant-based lifestyle has shown that people who are following this way of eating have lower BMIs than people eating any other dietary pattern. And so this is just a sample of how a conversation could go, and some potential resistances you get. They might say, oh, it's too hard to eat a low carbon diet. And then you can share with them, how easy it is for you to do, and how it's never been easier to do that, because there's so many more plant-based foods available at groceries. So that's one scenario. And then, someone might share with you, I'm getting solar panels or an EV. I have a friend who just got an EV. I can't afford an EV right now in my life. Maybe 10 years from now, when prices come down, I could do that. So this could be an opening too into a conversation, because you could ask, why are you getting an EV, or why are you putting solar panels on your house? Again, you want to be curious and genuine. If they feel like you're setting them up for something, you're going to get walls are going to go up immediately. So you want to be genuine and very and honestly curious, about why they're doing it, and really listen to them. And then when you can establish that you have a shared goal. Maybe they're getting an EV because they think that we need to divest ourselves from fossil fuels and be more sustainable. And you can agree that that you have that same shared goal too. But did you know that becoming plant-based lowers your carbon footprint, much more than driving an electric vehicle or solar panels? And you can share that study that I mentioned from Oxford University. It says that a plant-based person can lower their carbon footprint 73%. There's not a single other thing that we can do that could lower our carbon footprint that much. And then, I was just thinking of potential resistance. They might say, oh, but eating plant-based is so expensive. And you could say, well, it's not as expensive as buying an EV. That's a huge expense to buy a vehicle or to put solar panels on your house, even with government subsidies. That's very, very expensive. And that, the processed vegan foods that you get, like Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat and the cheeses, they are more expensive, but you don't have to eat those processed vegan foods that are at the store. They're convenient and they're tasty, but you can just go for unprocessed whole plant-based foods, and that'll save you money too. And then also you will save money with healthcare costs by eating more healthily. And then this I talked about earlier about it's not where the food is grown in proximity to you, as that's not as important as what the food is. So a lot of people are concerned about supporting their community and buying local food, and they equate that with automatically being more sustainable. And so you could ask, why are you buying local food? And again, be genuine and open, repeat back what you hear, establish a shared goal of community support or sustainability or whatever it is, for the reason why they are doing that. And then you can share a little bit about, did you know that the transportation part of a food's carbon footprint is just so small. It's really doesn't play that much of a difference in a food's footprint as much as what the food is, and how animal-based foods have much larger footprints. In fact, plant-based foods can have carbon footprints that are 10 times less than animal-based foods, even without methane. And, they may resist this. They may say, yeah, but I want to keep money in my community and support my community. And you can respond, that's great. There are ways we can do that. We can go to farmers markets and buy produce from the farmers in our area and support locally owned businesses, locally owned restaurants and things like that. And then, you might hear someone talking about they're worried about biodiversity loss. And again, you want to be genuinely curious about why are they concerned about biodiversity. And again, repeat back what you're hearing from them and establish a shared goal about biodiversity. And that could be your opening to talk a little bit about how a low carbon diet protects biodiversity, because animal agriculture is the main driver fueling deforestation in the world, and particularly in the Amazon rainforest. And, I hear this a lot from people, but if we all went vegan, we'd need even more land, right? To grow more plants. How are we going to grow all these plants because we don't have enough land? But actually the opposite is true. We're growing so many more plants for animal consumption than we would ever need to grow for human consumption. In fact, if all the land that we use in the United States to grow crops for animals, if we instead grew crops for human consumption on that same amount of land, we could feed an additional 1 billion people in the U.S. And we don't need to feed an additional 1 billion people. So we could send some of that food overseas in areas where they have food shortages, or more importantly, for the environment, even, we could give some of that land back to nature and let nature rewild it. And when we give land back to nature, it stores carbon and becomes a carbon sink. And so that's why it's so important to free up land to give it back to nature. And we could do that very easily by growing crops just to feed humans instead of feeding animals to feed humans. That's very inefficient. And then I've also heard this, I avoid almond milk. People sometimes will say, "Oh, those almond trees are so thirsty, y'all. Don't be drinking almond milk." So, and that's another one of those kind of myths. So you want to, well, why are you drinking almond milk? They could be lactose intolerant, or they could be doing they or I mean, they could be avoiding almond milk because they think, it's a poor use of resources because it uses too much water. But again, you want to be curious, genuine, open. Try to establish a shared goal. Yeah, water conservation. We all need to conserve water. And then you can share a little bit about how, a low carbon milk like almond milk actually requires less water than animal based milks. And, we don't need the choice isn't a binary. It's not cow's milk or almond milk. There's all kinds of plant-based milks out there that we can buy. And the most sustainable one is actually soy is still the most sustainable. But with almonds, it's important to realize that they do require a lot of water, but they are storing a lot of carbon. The trees are storing carbon. So that's very, very helpful. And then people might say, oh, well, almond milk's not as nutritious as cow's milk. And you could say, yeah, cow's milk's very nutritious for a baby cow, but it's not necessarily nutritious for humans. And that populations with high milk consumption also have the higher rates of osteoporosis. And that's kind of seems counterintuitive because of the advertising that the dairy industry has done. We think that we need all this dairy for strong bones, right? That's what we've been taught. But actually, the opposite is true. That the countries where we drink or consume the most dairy also has the higher rates of osteoporosis. And I'll just leave it there for now. I just thank everyone for listening. And, don't hesitate to ask any questions, maybe in the chat. And I think that's it, Peter.
Well, thank you. That's an amazing presentation, and as Genesee here has commented, great
Mm.
suggestions. Thank you, and certainly want to thank you, Stuart. Um, for all of this, and you've presented so much information, and as I'm sitting here listening to you, and I
Mm-hmm.
have some notes and questions, and there's questions here for you. um, I'm just really wanting to make sure that everybody will join us in the Passion Pod, because the Passion Pod, the idea for our Passion Pod is to be able to have these conversations all the time. So
Yeah.
when when somebody ends up running into an opportunity to talk about any of the things you've talked about, and the hundreds of other ecology, environment, climate related topics where the answer is always about being plant based, that across the board, that's really the best answer for any of these situations. But join the Passion Pod. Come to we did it health and become a member. And our Passion Pod, it's all of a sudden, the Passion Pod is about eco-friendly, conscious conversations. So
Mm-hmm.
look for that pod and join We Did That Health. Join the pod. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
List your questions, and Stuart will be monitoring these conversations, and other ambassadors who are uh, also very passionate about the environment. They will come and join the conversation. Together, we can celebrate our successes,
Mm-hmm.
explore our challenges, support each other, so that we can together make a difference in the world, plant the seeds, and make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So look for the Passion Pod, and we'll be having regular meetings on Zoom where actually we'll get a chance to have conversations. Here we are on StreamYard today, which makes
Mm-hmm.
it a little bit difficult to get engaged and have the conversations. But moving forward, all our follow up meetings, and we'll have at least one a month. All our follow up meetings will be on Zoom so that everybody can talk to each other. We'll want to get into things like role playing. So look at a specific situation. How would I react? Because, like Stuart, you said before, uh, it's getting comfortable with it. It's
Mm-hmm.
really, part of it is having this information, but maybe even a bigger part is for us to get comfortable. I think we as vegans have been hiding or getting confronted, getting shut out from our families, getting pushed back by so many people that we may be a little bit gun shy. And
Mhm.
when we're armed with the information, when we practice these strategies in our role playing, then we get to step into that and be able to plant the seeds.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And we don't want to, just come after people with all these facts, because studies show that when you do that, it can really have the opposite effect. They people get more entrenched in their way of thinking. We want to support everything we're saying with facts, but this is about having conversations, not talking at someone, but talking with somebody. And you may not have, so like I said, you have to pick and choose your opportunities for doing this. In certain scenarios, you're not going to have the time to really get into a conversation with somebody. Or you could say, let's talk about this later. Maybe you could do that. But don't just, start firing off a lot of statistics at somebody. You want to have established some rapport and some kind of shared goal with the person first.
Absolutely. And that's another part of our work here, and we did it, is to bring in the psychology so we can have
Mhm.
better interpersonal communication skills, listen better, build the relationships, know when we're invited to share more facts, like you're saying, Stuart, or be able to really detect when somebody is really not interested, so we don't just push them away and piss them off. So
Yeah.
between the conversation skills, the relationship skills, the strategies, all these resources that you're sharing with us.
Mhm.
And you know what, with that, I'm going to take the slideshow off, but I want to
Okay.
invite everybody to first use that QR code that's on the screen now. That will give you a copy of this presentation, as well as Stuart has prepared a wonderful resource sheet with some of his favorite, and please tell us a little bit about it, your favorite resources. So can you talk a little bit about what's downloadable through that QR code?
Yes, there are links to some of the studies that support what I was saying here today. I love our worldandData.org. That's an amazing website. So a couple of them, those charts came from Our World in Data, as far as the protein-rich foods and the carbon emissions of food across the supply chain. So I have links to articles on ourworldandData.org. I have a link to a nice article on plant-based milks versus cow's milk, which is better for the environment. So, and it lists the pros and cons of both. There's another link in there for the Oxford University study. There's not a paywall for that, but you may have to create an account. It's free to do. And it's kind of an in-depth study, but it is really, it's available. So I have that link there, and then I have a couple of links about just what are low carbon diets. One is more of a study, and then the other is actually from Weight Watchers, which I thought was really interesting. They have a really nice article about what is the low carbon diet. And this was, I think it was done like 15 years ago, which surprised me. So, and that's more just, it's much easier to digest because it's in an article form, but it has a lot of links that you can use if you want to take a deeper dive into it. So those are some of the links that I share in that resource page. And again, like Peter said, just use the QR code and that should take you there through the magic of technology.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I'll take this off. So you and I
Okay.
should be a little bit larger on the screen. There
Okay.
we are. Um,
Wow.
yes, I guess there's a couple ways. There's a way to
All
make
right.
us just a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I could, yeah.
yes, and so yeah, here's Genesis sharing uh, about how vegans share, and how we're so annoyed about the question of where do you get your protein. But it's a great conversation starter, she says.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so right, so Shaughnessy suggesting that instead of being annoyed by it, we can turn it into an
Hmm.
opportunity. It's a little bit like I used to hear, what when life hands you a lemon make lemonade, right? So,
Yeah.
so when somebody annoys us with a question, let's find ways to turn that around.
Yeah, because it's not the person's fault that they don't know that the protein is found in plants. Most people just were taught that we get our protein from animals. Um, so I know we get asked it, so many times, but I really like this reframing of it as an opportunity to plant a seed. Um, I think broccoli has more protein per gram than steak, but you'd have to eat a lot of broccoli to get as much protein as a piece of steak. But yeah, protein is available in all kinds of plant-based foods.
Right. Well, the topic of protein is like probably so many other topics, most topics, it's so rich in terms of what conversations we can have on it.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I learned early on when I came to this lifestyle is Dr. T. Colin Campbell's research, where 40 years ago he actually proved that cancer cells thrive on animal protein and die from
Hmm.
plant protein. So the question of protein, just there's probably 100 different conversations we can have about protein, and
Yeah.
right.
And I'll
So
just say that also on my resource sheet, I do have a link to my book. So I feel like I need to give it a shout out too, because it's a great resource. I wrote it trying to address all of the arguments that I had heard over the years from individuals about adopting this way of eating. So I tried to address all of those in my book, and so it's a book that even people who are on their plant-based journey can use as a resource guide, or they can give it to friends and family too. So I wanted to give myself a little bit of a shout out there. So the link is there. It's called Escape the Matrix, and yeah. Uh,
well, that's absolutely wonderful, and that is the resource, that is one of our resources, and the purpose of the Passion Pot. So from our perspective, we love and welcome your book, Stuart, and want people to read it and look at it, and
mhm.
and use it as a framework. Or if anybody has questions about it, or if anybody would like to put together a series where we actually make it all like a book club, go through your book
Mhm.
and have the conversations. That's
That'd
the
be
kind of
cool.
thing we're looking for with We Did That Health. It's our mission is to
Mhm.
create the platform and to have the experts, have people who've been studying this, like Stuart here, and to facilitate these conversations. So maybe this will turn into one of the threads in the Passion Pod would be a book club, reading through your book. I would love to see that
Yeah,
happen.
why not? I would love to too. Yeah, I have a chapter on protein and the protein myth, and like you said, um, uh, have a chapter on health and on the environment and climate change, and so yeah, it kind of goes through a lot of. Like I said, I tried to leave no stone unturned and tried to address all the things that I'd heard over the years about why we couldn't do this. Um, so yeah, I hope people will check it out. And yeah, as far as future meetings, we want to help each other learn and grow, so we can report back, about these conversations that we're having. How are they going? What are you noticing people are concerned about? In marketing, they talk about pain points. You have to identify a pain point for a demographic, and then you can address it. And so part of what, when we have these conversations, part of being curious and listening to what people are saying is just try to determine what their pain point is. What is it they're trying to accomplish are they concerned about their health? Are they concerned about the environment? Are they concerned about animal welfare? Are they concerned about climate change? All these different things. And then by listening, we can find out what their pain point is, and we can, empathize. We want to create this connection of a shared goal. Yeah, I feel that same way too. I'm watching the weather and I'm like, what is going on? It is so crazy. And then you want to use those techniques that I shared in the slides, and then I think we can have much more meaningful conversations, and we can then come back and in the passion pile we can talk about how it went, what kind of pushback, if any, you got from people, so we can learn to address that. Someone says, hey, someone told me about this, and we can say, well, let's research that, and let's try to find a solution to that, to that pain point, and we can help each other that way.
That's beautiful. That's exactly what we're here to do, and to support each other doing that and get comfortable with it. I want to also invite people. We certainly have an ebook, Seven Best Practices to Inspire Our Friends and Loved Ones to Become Plant-Based. So that brings in some of these conversation skills, and
Cool.
that's what the pod is about. Is for with your leadership, Stuart, and I so appreciate you leading this pod. Uh, and with your leadership to get into some of these points, because you know I propose that we all go through our daily lives missing dozens of opportunities to plant seeds, and and if we can all plant seeds when there's an opportunity, when we're all ready and confident,
Mhm.
and can plant those seeds, I am sure that this world will become vegan so much faster.
Mhm.
That may be part of it. We have so many amazing people doing so much great work, so many nonprofits, so many doctors. I mean, it's just awesome, but something's missing. We After all these decades, we have 1% of the world is vegan. I think
Mhm.
we need to add another strategy, and that strategy is for all of us who are plant-based, who want to see a vegan world, for animal justice, for our health, for the environment, whatever the reason, all the reasons. Uh, if we can just take advantage of opportunities to plant
Mhm.
seeds, I know we're going to make a difference together.
Yeah,
So
definitely. We just read an article, I think yesterday, in the New York Times about tipping points, and we hear about tipping points in terms of climate change. And but what I really liked about the article is it shared some of the tipping points that are positive. I mean, they're expecting that power generation from renewable sources will be the least expensive way of generating power by the year 2027. So we're approaching a tipping point right there. Last year, more money globally was invested into renewables than into oil. So that's a tipping point right there. So we see both negative and positive tipping points. And what we were wanting to do is to try to have conversations about the importance of diet and the food on our plates, because that's another tipping point that we need to reach. But it doesn't get talked about in mainstream media very much. Everyone's focused on renewable energy and EVs, but very few people are talking about the importance of the food that we're growing. And we need to have that conversation. And yeah.
Well, absolutely, Stuart. I mean, it's just, to me, it's mind-boggling. You've shared with us that 73% of our negative climate impact and environmental impact, 73% has to do with our food choice. And
Hmm.
so all the EVs, all the renewable energies, all the everything else put together is like a quarter of it. So really,
Hmm.
by far, the important thing to do is to be plant-based, and I so appreciate having you on board to
Hmm.
lead us towards that conversation. So let's get people, let's get our friends, our loved ones, our community-based environment groups. So any group that says we're doing this because we care about the environment, they
Hmm.
must not know that 3/4 of the solution is on our plate rather than than changing the cars we're driving. I mean, that's
Mhm.
everything's important, but that's just tiny compared to our diet.
Yeah. And it needs to be part of the conversation because, if we divested ourselves from fossil fuels immediately today, but still continued to eating the way we're eating, we would not be able to achieve our climate goals. We would fail. And it's because it's a huge piece of the puzzle, and it needs to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed in conjunction with, when we decarbonize energy production and transportation, we also want to be decarbonizing the global food production system. And the way to do that is to grow more plants for human rather than growing them for animal consumption. So,
Yes.
yeah, I know we're kind of preaching to the choir here, maybe.
Well, you know what? Yes and no. So I think that the spin on it, the new angle, the new approach on it is that we know most of this, and some of this is news to us. I think so many things that you've shared were new to me, but not surprising. And that's really probably the big thing is that all these things you're saying, some of these facts I haven't heard, but none of them
Yeah,
surprise me,
yeah.
right? But what we're about is then not just for our own consumption, but we're really about how to be better ambassadors with it.
Hmm.
What can we do to get people to really understand that the solutions on our plate, that you can't buy enough EVs to reverse what's going on with the climate.
Yeah,
We need to reforest, rewild. We need those trees to clean the air for us,
yeah.
because an EV doesn't clean the air. It just doesn't put any more harm into the air. So
Right.
yeah. Well, I'm
Mhm.
noticing that we're almost at the top of the hour. Stuart, when would you like to get together again? And uh, do you have a timeline for it? I was hoping it'd be soon again.
Yeah, we could get together again next week, even next Saturday on Zoom, and just have a conversation with people. Maybe people between now and then could take some of these techniques that we talked about, listening for opportunities, and just experiment and see what happens. And we can report back and just encourage each one of us to have these conversations, plant these seeds, and get answers to questions we might have.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
Yes, that sounds awesome. So let's do it again the same time, and we'll have a Zoom link available to you. Our primary place we'd like to have these conversations is in the Passion Pod on WeDidIt.health. So
Mhm.
become a free member of the community, join the Passion Pod, and and we will post the link to the Zoom call next Saturday at noon, and we'll post
Mhm.
it on our social media pages also, but that will be Zoom. So now we're going to shift the platform to one where we can all interact, where we can
Mhm.
really have conversations. Uh, the format, the vision for that is perhaps we start off with Stuart sharing some information with us for 10, 15 minutes, but really the core, the heart of the conversation will be for everybody to ask questions, to share experiences, to share successes, and to
Mhm.
ask the group for feedback on speed bumps.
Yep.
So please, so homework assignment, Stuart.
Well, just look for those opportunities, and like I said, have fruitful conversations. Really be curious, be open, establish a rapport, find a shared common goal, and then interject something into the conversation about how a plant-based lifestyle can help everyone achieve this goal. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. And let's come back next week and have a follow-up session and just share what happened.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stuart.
Mhm.
I'm so honored that you're joining us.
Oh,
I thank you. Your book is amazing, hopefully this Passion Pod will grow a thread into a book club and go through your book and have conversations on that, along with all the other conversations we intend for celebrating successes and sharing threads and topics and conversation
Mhm.
starters. We're a laboratory here. We're all out doing something that hasn't been done before. Let's all of us together figure out how to effectively plant these seeds and together have an impact to make this a better world.
Yeah.
So
All right.
with that, do you have any final words, Stuart? I think we're ready to sign off here.
No, I think we're good. Just to say that the Passion Pod on We Did It Health is called Eco Vegan Climate Conscious Conversations or something like that. I think there's maybe 4 or 5 Passion Pods, but if this is the one that you want to look for to be a part of these conversations. So.
Yes, and please, everybody, invite your friends, invite anybody else who's vegan, plant-based, and passionate about the environment and would like to pick up some tips and practice some strategies. We'll also be
Mhm.
doing role plays so that we can have that confidence, so we can go through, have the conversations with people, and again, so that we can plant the seeds that will make a difference.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Bye bye.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thanks, Peter.